The most important documents in your VA disability claim are obviously your medical records. They may come in different forms: your service treatment records, VA healthcare records if you're in the VA healthcare system, but also your private medical records. Within these records, the evidence can be provided, such as the in-service incident or injury or exposure. That may be in your service treatment records. For the VA records and for your private medical records, those are generally from post-service, but they can also be critical because they can provide the diagnosis, current treatment schedules, which can relate to the severity of the disability, but also they can point to the actual cause of the actual condition which you are claiming. Now, the VA does have the ability to obtain your service treatment records through the National Archives, but I always highly recommend that you send in the relevant service treatment records as part of your actual claim, and do not assume that the VA is going to be able to get those in a timely manner from the National Archives. Two, for your VA healthcare records, the VA can obtain those through their internal record system. Third, your private medical records. Only the veteran can provide the medical records or provide the VA the actual authority to obtain those records on your behalf. And that's where VA Form 4142 and 4142A come into play. So welcome back. My name is Mike. I'm a 28-year Army veteran who also served as a County Veteran Service Officer for several years. So today we'll talk about ensuring that your records are part of your claim, or the VA is able to see those records when they make their initial decision, their initial adjudication of your actual claim. Note, as before, this is not legal advice. It's just me sharing my knowledge and experience as a former County Veteran Service Officer. So let's get started. One course of action to obtain the records and make sure they get into your file is giving the VA the authority. Giving them the authority using 214142. That is basically a general authorization. It's very similar to like a limited power of attorney. You are providing the VA the authority to go to your primary caregiver, whatever relevant clinics, hospitals, to obtain relevant records for your claim. VA Form 214142A sets the parameters for which they ask. So the VA can't just ask for every record of every disability, every health issue you ever had. You provide the who, the doctor, the clinic, the hospital. You provide the dates of the treatment, and you provide the scope, be it orthopedic or cardiology or respiratory, whatever is related to the actual case. So you give them authority on the one document, which they will use to show that they're authorized to obtain the records, but two is your 4142A sets the actual limits. A few pro tips. One, as always, make sure you sign and date. Just like every other form that we've discussed, make sure you sign and date. Two, make sure you're very accurate on the treatment dates. Make sure you go back to the time when you first discussed this with your primary caregiver or saw them for treatment, x-ray and MRI, whatever you had with that caregiver for that particular condition. Three, very, very important, be very accurate on the address that you provide the VA to obtain those records. Just don't put the general address, say, for the Mayo Clinic. So the likelihood, if they just send it to the Mayo Clinic and it goes to the mailroom, it may never find the actual medical records or the actual office that would actually handle that request. So take the time to call your caregiver and ask them, when the VA mails in the letter requesting your records, where do they mail it to? Who do they put it to attention to? Very, very, very critical. Which leads me to pro tip 4. and this is the risk associated with this course of action, is the VA is only required to make a reasonable effort to obtain your medical records. Within the community, we always call it the 3-strike rule, which may not be completely accurate, but it's basically the VA will try 3 times to obtain your records. And it could be mail, it could be misrouting, it could be a small office, it gets busy, they've never seen it, they don't know how to handle it, they just set it to the side. But after 3 chances, the VA will no longer seek those records from that medical professional. And then they will make their decision on your claim without those actual records. The veteran may not know, and they generally will not know, that these records were not included as part of their claim until they get the decision letter. I've never seen the VA send a letter to the veteran during the adjudication process that they have not been able to obtain the medical records that the veteran gave them authority to seek. So there is significant risk with just using that form. Second course of action, and that is where the veteran provides the actual relevant medical documents as part of your actual claim. It's labor intensive, and especially if some of the places you had treatment are out of state. But you have to ask yourself, who has the biggest interest of getting those records into your file, you or the VA? Course of action 3, and this is the one that I recommended most often to my veterans, and it's what I call a hybrid. It's combining 1 and 2. 1, the veteran provides whatever records that they're able to obtain, especially the ones locally, especially the ones that have the current medically verifiable diagnosis. 2, in addition to that, provide the VA 4142 and 4142A as part of that package to give the VA the authority to obtain those documents on their own if they have a question or if they have suspicions that these records are not viable. That's one thing I always told my veterans. I said, you and I can sit here all day on the computer, especially with AI, and generate medical records. So we want to be as transparent as possible. So we'll send in the records, but we also give the VA the authority, if they want to on their own, to obtain those directly from that primary caregiver. So it's like an insurance policy. Now, like with all 3, ensure that you spell out the course of action that you took on your 4138, your narrative. For instance, if you submitted a claim for chronic rhinitis, if you put about I've enclosed relevant private medical records that show the diagnosis, see tab A, which may be your private medical records. I've also enclosed VA form 214142 and 214142A in the event the VA needs to obtain the records directly. So you've provided the records and you've given VA the authority to obtain the records on their own if they so desire. So, summary. Medical records are critical. They're critical for service connectivity. They're very critical for what we call leg 2 of a current and medically verifiable diagnosis. Ultimately, it's your responsibility to getting those records to the VA as part of your actual claim. So take the steps. I recommend doing the course of action 3, providing the medical records and giving the VA the authority to obtain the records for you because it's in your best interest. So this allows you to be proactive and provide the information as part of your claim instead of reactive of responding to a VA denial when your records somehow did not get into the adjudication process. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service and best of luck on your claim. If there's any comments of future videos you'd like me to cover, please put in the comments below. And I also request, if this is of value to you, please subscribe, share, and like.